Hey guys, Bunch and Kailey here, bringing a little truth talk in a different way than we ever have before. But it's been a crazy couple of weeks, month for that matter, of trying to figure out what online school looks like, working from home looks like, church looks like, all this stuff. And I think that we're all kind of beginning to reach a point where we're trying to figure out the new norm, and that norm is kind of changing every day. But I also think when we were to really dig down a little bit deeper, we're all beginning to sense a little bit of loneliness in the midst of this isolation, and and we miss people, we miss being around people, we miss community. And so today, Kaylee's going to bring a truth talk, addressing this loneliness, and the reality is, how can we get through this loneliness, but more importantly, how can we grow spiritually whenever we are feeling more lonely?
Yes. So, I mean, believe it or not, as unprecedented and as new and just weird as all of this feels that we are isolated and alone, we're not the first people to feel this way. We're not the first people that God's kind of allowed in these circumstances. We see in the Bible that this happened to Moses and Job and Joseph and David and the whole nation of Israel. And even Jesus was alone in a desert. And they were almost even more uncomfortable than we are because at least we're in our homes with air conditioning rather than a hot desert with no food. Um, but we know that in the Bible, God uses their moments in the desert and those moments of isolation to draw them closer to Him. He uses those moments to reaffirm who He is and prepare them for the plans that He had for them. And so God's able to use our current situation of isolation and loneliness to do those same things, to draw us closer to Him, to reaffirm who He is to us and prepare us for what He has planned. But the thing is, we have to be willing to, one, make the most of our situation, and two, we need to give God our attention and ask and expect Him to do those things in our lives. And so I think there's three things that we can do to kind of tune into that and allow God to do those things. And the first one is that we need to not numb ourselves. I think the temptation, anytime we feel lonely or awkward, if that's at a doctor's office or waiting in line, or now when we have all this free time, is we want to pull out our phones, we want to get on Netflix, we want to do whatever we can so we can avoid feeling lonely and uncomfortable. And it kind of makes sense why a lot of us feel alone or we feel disconnected from God or our friends right now, is because as soon as those feelings of loneliness creep in, we turn to everything but God. We turn to Netflix, we turn to YouTube, our phones, and we don't seek God in the midst of those. We just kind of numb out those feelings so we don't feel uncomfortable. And when we do that, we're not allowing God to comfort us. We're not allowing Him to show us that He's present in those moments, because we're not even allowing ourselves to feel those emotions in the first place. We are turning to everything else. And our kids in Beach Club, our elementary kids, are learning this huge verse in Jeremiah, and I just wanted to share the last part of it. It's Jeremiah 29:13, and it says, "You will seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all of your heart." And I think that's just a good reminder that we have to seek God. We can't just numb out those feelings and somehow expect Him to comfort us in the midst of our Netflix binge. We have to allow ourselves to feel those things and then seek Him through it. So the second thing is, now that we've allowed ourselves to feel uncomfortable, to feel a little lonely, we need to maybe let our prayers get a little messy, and our communication with God get a little messy, and take time to process those feelings and emotions with God. I think there's a temptation that we just want to say these, pretty cookie cutter prayers of like, "I know you're with me, God. Thanks. Love you. Bye." But I mean, we're not used to having this much quiet time, and it makes us uncomfortable. And so rather than just trying to, pray away those feelings with a pretty prayer, what if we use that time to reflect with God, to process our emotions? And so I'd want to challenge y'all that when those feelings of loneliness, anger at your situation, fear or questioning of God, whatever it is, that you would pray about those things, that you would process them with God. And some questions you could ask yourself is, what's making me feel this way? Does this change how I feel about God right now? Does this challenge me? Does it make it harder for me to believe some of the things that I know are true of God? Does it make it hard for me to believe that He's in control, that He's protecting me, that He has a plan for me, that He's, I don't know, whatever it is for you. Maybe it's making you wonder if the things that God says about, your life, His plans for you in the Bible are true. Maybe you need to ask yourself, what does God say about the emotions I'm feeling? Because He talks about all of our emotions and our feelings in the Bible. And so maybe you need to seek those answers and even seek the promises that He has for us in the Bible. And so we need to use our emotions to lean into God. We need to use them to reflect on those questions and have that be an open conversation with God rather than pushing them down or not feeling them at all. Because this can be a time where we can really seek His presence and His comfort and His peace if we can process them. And the last thing I would encourage y'all to do is you need to talk to people. All of us are going through the exact same thing right now, which makes it easy to talk to a lot of people, but you need to find someone who's also trying to seek God in the midst of our situation. We're all learning different things right now, and we can all learn from each other. Maybe the way Bunch is processing, his fear, frustration in this is similar to me, and I can be encouraged, like the iron sharpens iron from what God's teaching him. And so reach out to your small group leaders, reach out to your small group, reach out to any of us, and just share what's going on. It's nice to have someone who's also seeking God in this situation, who knows how you're feeling and is also having to process those things, but can encourage you and sharpen you in your faith in these moments where maybe you're having a hard time seeing where God's working, but they're able to see it a little differently. And so be in community, feel all the feels, and process them.
That's good. I like that. About the numbing yourself. You spent a lot of time on that, how when it gets awkward, we just naturally will pull out our phones and we'll go binge watch Netflix. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us watch the whole Joe Exotic crazy fast, right? And we anticipated, we wanted more. Then they released one more episode and everyone's already watched that one too. So it's been kind of it's crazy. Like we naturally will numb ourselves and do that. But my prayer in this whole thing too is don't allow boredom to creep in so much that you say you're bored, but yet we haven't done anything to connect with God. Man, my prayer is that none of us would be too bored that we haven't even like cracked open our Bible or try to connect with somebody else. It's like I think all three of these things are good with that and tie into one another. Connection is so key right now. We need to look for ways that we can continue to connect with one another. And so maybe that right there is just our challenge for you. Like, how can we best connect with you so that you would ease and kind of take away some of this loneliness of what we're all experiencing right now. So comment below with us, DM us, message us, let us know how we can best connect with you, encourage you, pray with you, and walk beside you with our current state of where we all are right now. We love you guys, and we honestly are longing for the day and the time that we can all come together, that we can worship together, and that we can connect together in God's word. But in the meantime, let's also do it right now to take away some of this feeling of loneliness and isolation. So we're praying for you guys. We love you guys. Let us know how we can best connect with you where you currently are.